We're working to connect a region of over 600 bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. On tonight's headlines. 5 billion people, or around two-thirds of the world's population, will face at least 1 month of water shortages by 2050. That according to the first in a series of UN reports on how climate change is affecting the world's water resources. President Marcos says the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty between the Philippines and the U.S. remains under negotiation and evolution.
Yung problema kung bakit natigil ang negotiations.
And President Marcos also expressed readiness to partner with China for possible joint oil exploration in the West Philippine Sea. Plus, New York and Singapore are jointly the world's most expensive cities after inflation soared this year, according to an annual survey. Now to the news. 5 billion people, or around two-thirds of the world's population, will face at least 1 month of water shortages by 2050. That according to the first in a series of UN reports on how climate change is affecting the world's water resources. Here's WMO Secretary General Petteri Taalas.
Today we have about 2.3 billion inhabitants of the planet which are suffering from water challenges, and by 2050 we expect to see up to 5 billion people suffering from those. Yeah. This COP decided to endorse an investment of $3.1 billion for the coming 5 years to improve the basic observing infrastructure of meteorology and hydrology, and also early warning service skills in half of the member countries of WMO. We had very severe flooding even here in Europe, in Germany and Belgium, where we got altogether almost 300 casualties, which is demonstrating that not even the developed world is protected from such things to happen. Most dramatic one has been the flooding in Pakistan, where we had low pressure areas moving day by day along the same paths, and that was having major impacts on well-being of the people and economies. Up to 1/3 of the country was in the worst case flooded. Then we saw these severe heat waves and drought here in Europe, in China, and also in western parts of United States, and there was also one hurricane which was hitting both USA and Cuba, and the biggest impacts of the hurricane was felt through water. It was very much flooding. And here in Switzerland, we have just broken less comfortable record in melting of alpine glaciers. During the past 20 years, we have seen decrease of the alpine glacier, but we were hitting the record last summer when we lost 6.2% of the glacier because of the heat wave.
The report also said governments must increase their actions in introducing early warning systems for floods and droughts to help reduce the effects of water extremes. Meanwhile, Pagasa said most areas in the Philippines will experience rains due to the intertropical convergence zone and the Shearline Plus. According to the Weather Bureau, it also said that we are expecting up to 2 tropical cyclones to enter the Philippine area of responsibility also this month. Here's weather specialist Benison Estereja.
Bago tayo magtungo sa ating weather forecast, alamin muna natin kung ano nga ba nga asahang mga bagyo ngayong buwan ng Disyembre. Kung mapapansin po nyo sa ating tinatawag na Tropical Cyclone Climatological Track ng Pag-asa, Kung mapapansin nyo, itong mga maninipis na linyang kulay itim, ito po yung lahat ng mga bagyo na dumaan ng Disyembre sa nakalipas na 80 taon. Habang yung makakapal na itim na linya, ito naman yung tinatawag na average tracks o yung mga kadalasang dinadaanan ng mga bagyo tuwing Disyembre. Kung mapapansin po nyo, ibig sabihin kapag bababa yung entry point ng mga bagyo or nagsimula ito sa may silangan ng Mindanao, ang tendency po niya ay kumilos pa westward or pa west-northwest at mataas ang chance na naglalandfall po ito dito sa bahagi ng northeastern Mindanao. Affected ang ating mga kababayan sa Caraga Region, northern Mindanao, at malaking bahagi ng Visayas, even dito sa may Mimaropa. Kapag naman ang entry point nito or bahagyang tumaas, yung pagpasok nito sa ating area of responsibility, such as dito sa may silangang parte ng Visayas or Bicol Region, ganun pa rin po, may tendency na maglalandfall ito dito sa natitirang bahagi pa ng Luzon, lalo na yung ating mga kababayan sa Bicol Region, affected din po. Then merong maliit na chance na nagre-recurve or lumilihis po ito ng direksyon palapit dito sa may Northern Luzon, pero lalayo na rin po patungo sa North Philippine Sea. Pero in general po, ang mga bagyo tuwing December po, mas mataas ang tsansa na tumatama sa kalupaan or naglalandfall. At hindi rin natin dinidiscount na posibleng maging malalakas ang mga ito na sa typhoon at super typhoon categories. Ngayong taon naman po ng December, asahan pong isa o dalawang bagyo na pumasok ng ating area of responsibility at ang mga susunod na pangalan, letter R, Rosal, and letter S, Samuel. Ngayong araw naman po, meron tayong dalawang weather systems na nagpapaulan sa ating bansa. Sa ating mga kababayan sa Visayas and Mindanao, meron tayong ITCZ or the Intertropical Convergence Zone o yung linya kung saan nagtatagpo ang hangin mula sa magkabilang panig ng mundo. Kaya meron din mga minsang malalakas na mga pag-ulan simula pa po kahapon.
The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty between the Philippines and the U.S. remains under negotiation, that according to President Marcos. Let's listen in.
Well, the Mutual Defense Treaty is continuously under negotiation and under evolution. I always call it an evolution because things are changing. There have been many requests and proposals from the Americans, especially under EDCA. All of that is under study now to see what is really feasible and what will be the most useful for the defense of Philippine territory. But essentially, on the security, tinitingnan natin yung kanilang pinopropose, yung mga joint exercises and EDCA, the use of our bases, all of this. We are in the middle of that. Palagay ko, by early next year, we will have something more concrete to tell you.
During their meeting at the Malacanang Palace on November 21, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris assured President Marcos that the U.S. would always stand with the Philippines in defense of international rules and norms as it relates to the highly contested South China Sea. Vice President Harris also stressed that any possible armed attack against Philippine forces in the South China Sea would prompt the invocation of the U.S. mutual defense commitments. The 1951 MDT, the longest-running defense pact, aims to step up the defense and security cooperation between the Philippines and U.S. troops. Meanwhile, President Marcos Jr. also expressed readiness to partner with China for possible oil exploration in the West Philippine Sea. In a media interview in Quezon City, President Marcos broached the idea of exploring other ways to ensure the immediate development of oil and gas resources in the contested waters. The president made the remark in case the possible government-to-government partnership fails to proceed. Let's listen in.
Yung problema kung bakit natigil ang negotiations. No, maalala ninyo, nag-pronouncement si Foreign Affairs Secretary, si then Teddy Boy Locsin. At sinabi niya natigil ang negotiations dahil of constitutional problems. Ang talagang nangyari dyan is kasi kine-claim ng China, kanila yun. Atin naman talaga yan. So sinasabi ng Pilipinas, basta yung batas, kailangan masundan yung sa Pinas. Ang sinasabi naman ng Chinese, hindi. Amin yan eh. Kaya kailangan masundan is Chinese. So yun talaga yun ang roadblock doon. Mahirap makita kung paano natin aayusin yun. I think there might be other ways para hindi gawing G2G or I don't know. We'll have to find a way. Kasi kailangan na natin eh. We already need, kung may mahanap dyan, kailangan na talaga ng Pilipinas. Yung China, hindi man, maliit na bagay sa kanila yan eh. Sa atin, malaking bagay yan. So, kailangan talaga natin ipaglaban at mapakinabangan kung meron mang oil talaga.
In November 2018, the Philippines signed a memorandum of understanding with China on joint oil and gas development in the WPS. However, the Philippines, under the Duterte administration, terminated the talks before Mr. Marcos assumed presidency on June 30 because of constitutional constraints and issues on the country's sovereignty. The Department of Foreign Affairs in September this year said the two countries have so far made initial and general discussions on possible joint exploration in the West Philippine Sea, but have not yet progressed to working level talks. During their inaugural bilateral meeting in Bangkok, Thailand on November 17, President Marcos and Chinese President Xi Jinping agreed that the immediate conclusion of negotiations for the final and binding code of conduct in the South China Sea will help address the maritime disputes among littoral states. The statistics are sobering. 1 in 12 deaths worldwide are caused by some form of injury and/or violence. And when all those deaths are tallied, the outcome shows that traffic accidents, drownings, falls, burns, and suicides are taking the lives of some 12,000 people a day. Here's Rosel Feria from Washington, D.C.
Did you know that some 12,000 people around the world die of injuries and violence each day? According to the World Health Organization, 3 of the top 5 causes of death among people aged 5 to 29 years are injury-related. These include traffic injuries, homicide, and suicide. Other injury-related killers include drowning, falls, burns, and poisoning. WHO says of the 4.4 million annual injury-related deaths, roughly 1 in 3 results from road traffic crashes, 1 in 6 from suicide, 1 in 9 from homicide, and 1 in 61 from war and conflict. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus mentions that people living in poverty are significantly more likely to suffer injury than the wealthy. He underscores the health sector's major role in addressing these health inequities and in preventing injuries and violence. WHO says effective and low-cost interventions are available. For example, Spain has set the default speed limit for cities at 30 kilometers per hour and is improving road safety. Vietnam provides swimming training to prevent drowning. The WHO report Preventing Injuries and Violence, an overview, is being released during the 14th World Conference on Injury Prevention and Safety Promotion in Adelaide, Australia. The conference provides an opportunity for the world's leading injury and violence prevention researchers and practitioners to continue to advocate for evidence-based measures to prevent injuries and violence. Rosel Feria, Washington, D.C., Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
East Timor inaugurated a new deep-water port operated by a French conglomerate in the largest ever single foreign investment on an infrastructure project in Southeast Asia's youngest country. The $490 million port at Tibar Bay near the capital Dili is expected to expand trade for East Timor, one of the poorest countries in the region. French transport giant Bollore's director of ports, Olivier Denore, said it was necessary for East Timor to be connected to the main shipping lines in Asia. The port will be able to receive ships of more than 8,000 containers, he said, and vessels sailing from Singapore through the Indonesian archipelago to Australia will be able to call there. East Timor, which gained independence from Indonesian occupation in 2002, already has a port in Dili, but it's not deep enough to accommodate large container ships. The new project, which took 4 years to complete, is being operated under a 30-year public-private partnership agreement. East Timor will contribute to $135 million and Bollore $155 million for the initial phase of the project, according to the local government. The port started operations in September and was inaugurated at a ceremony on Wednesday. It'll become the largest private employer in the country with more than 300 jobs. The severe inflationary crisis combined with a global slowdown in economic growth, driven in part by the war in Ukraine and the global energy crisis, are causing a striking fall in real monthly wages in many countries. According to a new International Labor Organization report, the crisis is reducing the purchasing power of the middle classes and hitting low-income households particularly hard. In a call for urgent measures to prevent deepening poverty, inequality, and social unrest, the ILO said that global monthly wages fell 0.9% in the first half of this year. Take a look.
The main finding is that global wage growth, considering average monthly wages, has declined for the first time in the 21st century to reach negative numbers. So the global estimate is minus 0.9%. If we exclude China from the estimates, where China has a significant weight, it goes down even further to minus 1.4%. If we look at advanced G20 economies, it's minus 2.2%. If we look at emerging G20 economies, it's 0.8%. However, the reason why in emerging economies it has not gone to negative numbers, first of all, is because China is included there. And the second thing is because they have suffered less erosion as a result of lower inflation rates, whereas in advanced G20 economies, the erosion of wages has been significant due to the high increase in the cost of living. What we see is that families that are at the low end of the income distribution are suffering more from this cost of living crisis, but they actually suffer more the impact of the COVID pandemic. So policies should be put in place to be able to help these families overcome the cost of living crisis that is bound to increase inequality across countries, within countries, and between countries.
Now, this is the first time this year that global wages have not increased, and the trend is clearest among some of the world's richest nations, where wages fell by 2.2%. Now, that compares with emerging economies where real wages grew by 0.8%, which is 3 times less than before COVID hit. And Asia is beginning to see healthy travel patterns, with borders opening up again, according to a recent travel survey conducted by GMO Research Incorporated. Take a look. The responses are divided by countries, with those from Hong Kong at 53%, Singapore 64%, the Philippines 51.5%, and Vietnam 62.3%, indicating their plans for an increased travel budget. In comparison, a large majority from Japan 95% and South Korea 72.7% have indicated that they have no plans to spend more and might consider paying a little or a lot less, seemingly due to the depreciation of their currencies. Japan emerged as the #1 destination respondents would most likely to visit, followed by South Korea in second place. The traditional and local cuisines, unique cultural experiences, and tourist attractions are the main push factors for travelers to visit Japan and South Korea. For Japan, the depreciation of the Japanese yen is also a motivating factor for respondents to travel to the country with its anime culture. On the other hand, South Korea's burgeoning Korean entertainment industry is a contributing factor, as respondents have indicated attending concerts by BTS and Korean stars, and a love for Korean dramas as strong reasons for wanting to visit South Korea. Similar to Japan, the depreciation of the South Korean won can also be seen as yet another push factor for respondents to visit the destination as it becomes more affordable. And New York and Singapore are jointly the world's most expensive cities after inflation soared this year, according to an annual survey today. The pair displaced last year's #1, Tel Aviv, which fell to third place this time around in the Worldwide Cost of Living Index from London-based Economists Intelligence Unit, or EIU. The survey revealed the soaring cost of living in the world's biggest cities as the war in Ukraine and continuing pandemic restrictions disrupt supply chains, particularly for energy and food. New York hit the top spot for the first time, while Damascus and Tripoli remained the cheapest cities. Prices rocketed by an average 8.1% in the 172 major cities covered by the EIU survey conducted between August and September. It also noted that the survey shows the impact of the strong U.S. dollar on city rankings. A total of 50,000 worldwide prices were converted into dollars. The U.S. currency has jumped this year as the Federal Reserve hikes interest rates by large amounts to try and tame decades-high inflation. In addition to New York, Los Angeles and San Francisco moved into the top 10. The biggest upward movers were Moscow and St. Petersburg, which shot up by 88 and 70 places, respectively, as prices soared amid Western sanctions and buoyant energy markets supported the ruble. And as my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And before we go, I would like to greet our sister, Ma'am Babylene Manalo. A very happy birthday po. May God bless you every day po. Happy birthday po. And with that, we end tonight's broadcast of ASEAN in Focus. For everyone here, thank you for watching. We'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place. And we remind you to stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.